Okay, hello everybody. I think I am live. Let's just wait and see. I think it's going through. So today I am here for burning questions. Now, for those of you that don't know me, my name's Dana Kay. I'm a board certified holistic health and nutrition practitioner, and I'm so excited to be jumping on here live for this week's edition of your burning questions. Now, I asked earlier this week on some of my social media channels and email what your questions were, and I had lots and lots of responses. So I'm going to get to as many as I can today, but if I don't, I'll save them on for later, so don't worry. Now, if you miss those posts and have a question, I want to invite you to go ahead and take a second and pop that question into the comments of this live, and I'll definitely come back in later and answer as many as I can. So you can pop them into the comments and I can answer them. So let's get started. The first question was from Diana, and Diana asks, what should I do or how should I act when we're at a family reunion and my kid starts pushing or starts hitting his cousins? I know he's not doing it on purpose, but they're cousins, doesn't know the problems he has. What can I do so he won't be so rough at the moment when he's around other children his age when they're playing or running around or playing tag, etc.? So Diana, this is a really great question, and I think it's one that a lot of us can relate to because many children with ADHD struggle with this type of thing. Okay, so the first thing that comes to my mind when I hear of children playing really rough is that there could be some unmet sensory needs. Now, if this is the case, I would try to provide lots of opportunities for him to get what's called proprioceptive input. So think deep pressure or big muscle activities, heavy lifting, bear crawls, weighted blankets, that type of thing. By getting these sensory needs met in a healthy way, that will hopefully help him to not need to play as rough if sensory needs are in fact part of the issue. Hi Jess. So it looks like that the person that you tagged isn't in the Facebook group, so they probably won't actually see the tag, but you can add them to the group so that they can watch it later. Now, Diana, the one thing I will say also is if it is sensory, that can come from inflammation. So that need to get that pressure comes from the body that's in a state of inflammation. And so when you can actually reduce that inflammation through a lot of the strategies that I talk about with diet and getting to root causes and things like that, you will find that sensory needs tend to reduce as well. Now, another thing that comes to mind in the meantime is practice. Lots and lots of practice. Many children with ADHD, when they are really excited about something, actually don't realize they are being too rough, and it's really quite unintentional. Now, my suggestion for this would be to practice with your child many, many times while teaching healthier ways to show their excitement. So for instance, I'm not sure how old your child is, but if they like Legos, you could practice with Legos. And one Lego could be super excited because he gets to see his cousin, and he's so excited, in fact, that he's having a hard time keeping his hands and his feet to himself. And as you're talking through this, through with the Legos, you could talk about the way his body might be feeling, like maybe his heart is racing and his breathing is quicker because he feels so excited. Then you could discuss what some good strategies are to help him not hurt his friends accidentally. Like he could jump up and down or clap his hands together or shout if the situation allows for loud activity. So another good one is jumping on a trampoline. Now, you as you're talking through it, using the Legos and imagining what some good options are when the Lego feels excited and is in this situation where he might play too rough. So you do this practicing over and over again so that he can sort of begin to understand healthier ways to show his excitement. It's definitely not a quick process, and it does require a lot of guidance and teaching from you. But eventually, as he starts to recognize those feelings in his body, he can begin to incorporate the strategies while he is playing too. So hopefully that makes sense. If you have any other further questions to add to that, let me know in the comments. But I will say again, as inflammation reduces as well, they become more aware of their body feelings. And it's really important to talk about what's going on inside their body so they can get attuned to that. And starting early is super great. Like, I wish that my parents, taught me to understand the feelings going on in my body. I probably would have learned a lot earlier about some of those things. So it wasn't really until my late 20s that I really understood different feelings in my body. So starting early is super good. Now, on to our second question from Shelley. I'm trying to eliminate dairy in our diet. The hardest thing is yogurt and ice cream. I've found various products, coconut, almond, oat, but my son is sensitive to almonds and almond products as well as wild oat. Does that include the milk, yogurt, etc., products made from oats, or is that something separate? Only asking because it specified wild and thought that was weird. That maybe refined, domesticated oats are different. So first of all, good on you, Shelley, for beginning to eliminate dairy. Dairy is definitely one of the top 3 inflammatory foods along with gluten and soy. So by eliminating this, you are significantly, moving towards reducing that inflammation in your child's body. So that's awesome. Now, as far as your question about the wild oats, since I'm not the one who ran your food sensitivity test, I can't really say for sure. But in my opinion, yes, I would avoid all oat-based products. The protein structures will be similar enough that all oats would probably be avoided. Now, as far as yogurt and ice cream alternatives, there are actually a lot out there that don't have almond or oats in them. You could try macadamia nut milk, hemp milk, cashew milk, coconut milk yogurts and ice creams, or you can even make your own. One of my favorites is to take frozen banana and blend them up with just a touch of water or dairy-free milk. Sometimes I add cocoa powder or strawberries. The frozen banana makes a really nice ice cream-like texture, and the flavor is really good as well. So hopefully that helps. I will say with yogurt, you want to be very careful with the amount of sugar that is in a lot of those store-bought yogurts. So I actually don't like yogurt as an everyday thing unless you can get one without sugar. But if you're getting one that doesn't have added sugar in it, then that's great. So our next question was from Carissa. Do you have some links to scientific studies showing the connection between gut health and brain health and diet and ADHD symptoms you can share with us that we can use to help get spouses and extended family members on board with being willing to support us making these changes with our kids? My husband thinks it's just someone trying to sell me something, and my kids are often with grandparents, and I know they won't believe it is necessary, as they made me feel like I was crazy when I was nursing my daughter. And had to cut gluten, dairy, and soy from her diet because she wouldn't sleep and had the worst rash and diarrhea when it was going through with the nursing. So, Carissa, this is a really great question, and the answer is definitely yes. We absolutely do have a resource for this. I will say first, if you have watched my webinar, give them a link to watch the webinar. I talk about a lot of studies in there that actually support diet and gut and brain and all of that sort of stuff. So that is a really good place to start. I think I talk about 5 different studies in there. But I also actually wrote up a letter that we can send to you that you can share with families and family members and spouses to help them understand why nutrition is so important. And on that letter are links to research articles that you might find helpful. So Carissa, and actually anyone out there who wants this resource, if you can just say, I want the letter in the comments, I'll have my team send that over to you. Now, our next question are from Shane and Nicole. Shane and Nicole have actually joined my program, and with my program, they actually get the opportunity to jump on group coaching calls every day of the week and talk through their questions. So we might have already answered these earlier this week for them, but the question was so great that I just decided to go ahead and answer it quickly here as well because it can help other people. So they were saying, how do you convince picky toddlers to buy into the foods in the program? So gluten, dairy, soy, that sort of thing. Also, does limiting dairy for non-ADHD kids make them more likely to develop a sensitivity later in life? Also, how do you get ADHD kiddos to sit still at the table long enough to consume the meal? Now, this is a really great question. So I'm going to start with the picky eating one. I want to quickly go through 4 key principles that can really help with picky eaters and introducing new food. So number 1, you only introduce 1 or 2 new foods at a time. Trying more than that can sort of make the experience really overwhelming and stressful, but you also want to pair that new food with one familiar food that your child enjoys. And remember, it can take up to 15 to 20 times before a child's taste buds adapt to a new taste or a new texture. So keep introducing that new food. Even if they don't like it at first, keep going. Number 2 is try new foods during the time of the day that you know your child is going to be hungry. This way they're more open and willing to taste new foods. So if your child is starving when he gets home from school, offer his dinner then and just give a snack later while the rest of the family's having dinner. Tip number 3 is to try to be calm and upbeat during meal times. I know it's so stressful, but you need to remain calm and positive when things aren't going to plan. When my boys were younger, I used to sort of encourage them to crunch their food like a bunny rabbit or give that food a lick like a puppy dog, and we would giggle and it would take the tension out of dinner time. For older kids, take a joke book to the table. Share a joke before the meal, and every new thing they try, just even a small taste or even a lick, they can find a new joke to share. Finally, number 4 is food chaining. And food chaining is a technique I commonly use with families in my program. So you really learn the secret to change the shape, change the seasoning, change the cooking method, change the way your child tries the same food in different ways. So, for example, a potato can be prepared in a million different ways. Don't change the food that they enjoy, change the way you serve it. So change the texture and the seasoning, include herbs and spices, and just keep introducing it. So, change up the preparation. You can deep fry, pan fry, make into mash, tots, add spices, combine it with sweet potato mash. So it's all about changing things really slowly and carefully, starting from the base that your child already enjoys. But I also want to quickly share 2 other tidbits to think about. Zinc deficiency, can be a big driver for picky eating as well. So getting that checked out can help. I did do a video on this previously that I'm going to pop the link to it in the comments after this is over. Number 2, when you start reducing inflammation in the body, the brain, and the gut by changing diet, you will be surprised at how much their palate opens up. So moving on to your second question about if limiting dairy makes you more likely to develop a sensitivity later on. Usually not. Now, all humans are to some degree sensitive to non-human milk. Limiting dairy doesn't make it more likely to develop a sensitivity later on, but as you might already know, I suggest that everyone avoid both gluten and dairy because of how highly inflammatory they are. So I don't think anyone should be ingesting dairy at any point in my opinion, but when you're working with a toddler, they've obviously got their calcium needs that they need to be met as they are growing. And so that's something that you need to talk about and making sure that they're getting enough calcium in their diet. And, it depends on how old your other son is, but working to make sure that they get their calcium needs met for their age. Now, your final question about how to get a child to sit still at the dinner table. It's such a great question. My son used to be the same. He literally could not keep his bum in the chair. And once we were able to reduce inflammation in his body calmed down, okay? And so he just was able to be calm. And now, it's my 8-year-old son that can't sit still, but the hyperactivity has calmed down. But in the meantime, you can try the 10-minute rule. Now, when kids have a sense of how long something is going to take, they will be able to get up and play or do something very soon is often enough to keep them seated. So kids with ADHD generally tend to be very visual. So having some sort of timer where they can see how long they need to stay seated for is great. I'm going to pop a link into the comments of one I really like. Number 2 is use conversation starters for kids. Kids often need prompts to talk about things on their mind and be interested in conversations. I know when I ask my kids, what did you do at school today? I always get, I don't know, I don't remember. So you can research different topics on the web. You can write them on small pieces of paper and put them into a bowl or a box. You can actually buy boxes on Amazon specifically designed for this. And I'm going to pop a couple of my faves into the comments after this video is over. Another way is play small games like Spot It or Uno or Taco vs. Burrito at the dinner table. You can offer activities before mealtime to calm them before sitting, such as jumping on a trampoline, 5 minutes of exercise, that type of thing. You can also play relaxing music during dinner or allow sensory toys at the table. You might also want to consider a weighted vest or a wiggle seat. I'll also pop a couple of my favorites into the comments below. Now, our next question was from Kelly. I'm just checking the time. So Kelly asked, how do you deal with math homework when he does one and it makes sense? Then the next problem is almost exactly the same and he acts like he's never seen it before. The memory and repetition of math. So this is definitely a tough one. I think I would begin by asking questions, being curious with your son. Is it really that he doesn't know it, or is it he just bored and doesn't want to continue doing something that he doesn't find interesting? It can be the case. And, since I don't know your child, of course, I don't know, but that's one thing that comes to mind for me. But also, some kids are better at math. Some kids aren't as good as math. They may be good at something else. Now, for children with ADHD, it can be hard to keep them on task when the task they find is not fun for them to do. So maybe you could work out a system where he answers 3 questions and then gets to take a break and do something he enjoys. If it is that he doesn't know how to work the problem, you might want to consider talking with his teachers and getting some strategies from him or her. And our final question comes from Sarah, and Sarah asks where to start, especially feeling like you as a parent has the disorder, and probably so do at least half the children. Where do you start? Buy-in, testing, give me timelines, like shoot for this, and you may notice this. If you make it too this long, you'll see that, etc. Okay, so Sarah, that was really great questions, and you're absolutely right that it can be very overwhelming for a lot of parents who also have been diagnosed with ADHD or suspect they may have the same. There is definitely a genetic component to ADHD, so many parents actually realize that they too have similar struggles as their children when their children get diagnosed. Now, in answer to your question about where to start, I am going to pop a link into the comments for my free 25-minute masterclass that I do that actually walks you through exactly what I suggest families start with. So be on the lookout for that. Now, you also mentioned buy-in and lab testing. I talked about buy-in a bit earlier with Carissa's questions, so not sure if you tuned in for that part of this live or not, but you might want to check that out. You can go back and listen to that. Now, I also mentioned a letter that I have for family members who don't necessarily buy into the natural strategy. So if you'd like a copy of that, just say in the comments, I want the letter, and my team will get that over to you. Now for lab testing, I'm going to pop another link into the comments where I talk more in depth about lab testing. So look for that as well. Now, as far as timelines, I wish I could give you like a firm timeline, but every child is so different, and the timeline really varies from child to child. So some kids will have like insane improvements within a few weeks, but for others it can take up to 12 weeks or a few months. Every child is so different, and it all just depends on how strong of an inflammatory response their body is having to gluten, but also if there's anything else underlying going on. So it's really hard to know. For my son, when we took out gluten, like literally 2 weeks later, he was a different kid. For others, they see no improvement until they, start attacking candida. And so it is very different for different families and different kids. So guys, hope that answers your questions, but I'm always happy to help. So if you ever have any more questions, shoot me a PM. If you've got any other questions from today's live, pop them in the comments below. If you want that letter, type in "I want that letter" and my team will get it over to you. But I will be dropping in a lot of the links that we talked about today. And I hope you all have a wonderful weekend, Friday, and I will talk to you all soon. Take care.